And we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Justin, and welcome to another episode of the Internet Marketing Podcast with Katie, our other co-host. And that's a terrible way to kick off the show. But welcome to another episode of the Internet Marketing Town Hall, where Katie and I break down our week. We look at some of the questions that are posted to us by real business owners who are in similar positions that we are, looking to improve their businesses and their reach and sales using internet marketing and e-commerce platforms. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. So I hope everybody is ready to kind of look into their soul and into what it takes to be an entrepreneur and what really gets them excited about what they do. So I'm excited for today. I challenged Katie earlier before when we were prepping for our call to think a little bit outside of the norm, given a list oriented around, how to improve your listings and XYZ, and look more into the soul. So with that, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Katie, and then we can kind of go back and forth and kick off our Fast
Hey
Five.
guys, thanks for joining. This is Katie, the other half to the brother-sister duo here, where we kind of get into all kinds of fun stuff on these podcasts, just, things that we've learned, things that are currently going on in our industries for e-commerce and for advertising. I manage a lot of the Amazon involvement, so we consult for big sellers on Amazon to help them grow. And we also do a lot of the actionable items in the day-to-day account management. So that's kind of my role here. And then internally, obviously, Justin and I work close together to continue to grow our business and to explore different ways to help you guys learn a little bit more about what's going on and what's out there and available to you.
Yeah, I think you and I both have really interesting skill sets that have been created and crafted and worked at over the past 5 to 10 years. And it's fun to get to hear your perspective on things and know where those come from. So I hope that we get to give a little bit of context into some of the philosophies or overarching themes that we get into today, and maybe give some stories and context. But I saw that you already had your list completely done and up. So if you want to start with what you got, and I think we maybe leave this a little bit more open and go back and forth and engage with each other on these.
Yeah, I'll start with my Fast Five. It's a cool segment that we get into every week. It definitely sets the tone right and gets us right down to business, but in a little bit of an organized way, just to kind of keep things exciting right from the beginning. In our Fast Five this week, Justin had a good idea to do something a little more creative, a little less tactical. So this week I've got 5 things business owners should ask themselves, which I think is what Justin's going to do as well. So it'll be interesting to see if anything overlaps or if you've got totally different perspectives this time around. So to kick it off, first thing a business owner I think should ask themselves is, what is my differentiation strategy? Whether you're selling a product or a service, you have to think about what positions you uniquely in your market space. What sets you apart from your competitors? Is the only thing that makes you different that you're the cheapest version of your product or service? Because if that's true, you're going to have to keep cutting as a race to the bottom and, keep being more competitive on price, versus if you have, the most durable version of a product, or if you have the most expertise in a service or something like that. Those usually tend to do more favorably when you position yourself uniquely in the market. So what is your differentiation strategy? You've got to know what makes you special. What's your secret sauce right from the beginning? Number 2, what are my actual profit margins? I feel like I might have said this before. I also use the word profit margins like 40 times a day, so maybe not. But what are my profit margins? So this is something we're dealing with a lot for a few companies who are really established. We're kind of branching out and expanding their exposure in the EU markets. So there's new growth over there. And while we're figuring out how to make, new impressions in the market and grow their market share in the EU, we're really hankering down on profit margins in the US. But also from the very beginning, when you're not even in growth mode, when you're just kind of getting started and getting your bearings, you need to set yourself up in a favorable position to make sure that you can make some profit out there. You can definitely have your loss leaders, but from the beginning, you want to know what kind of numbers you're dealing with. Number 3, what is our why or our vision? Justin and I will talk a lot about this, especially because we're marketers at heart. You need that overarching theme that connects you and gives you the ability to make all of your day-to-day decisions, all of your planning and your dreaming. What is the reason that you do what you do? It's not, just to make money. There's got to be something else out there that gets you up in the morning, gets you excited to do what you do, and connects you to a bigger picture for the rest of your team members to buy into and those who do business with you. Number 4, what are our bottlenecks? I think a lot of people only tune into production when they think of bottlenecks, but it also can be with marketing. Is there a certain process in your approval, journey to get content approved that's really taking a long time? Is there a certain team that needs a little bit more time? Where in any of your production, whether it's, manufacturing products or developing websites or developing advertising schemes, what is taking you a long time in any of your processes, and what can you do to kind of speed it up? And then number 5, this is a very arbitrary question, but I ask it to myself all the time. And I actually met with somebody today who challenged me again to kind of turn myself around and think about this question more deeply. But number 5 is, are we being creative enough, and are we innovating enough? It's one of those things where I think if you are, you might not be asking yourself all the time if we're being creative enough or innovating enough. But if you feel like you're stuck and you're looking for new ways to market or position yourself, or you're trying to create a new product line or a new service or something, you can't figure it out, it's probably because you need to tap into that creativity and that innovation a little bit, and just really get outside of the box and kind of put a new perspective into things. Those are going to be my fast 5. Justin, do you want to dive into yours, and then we can get into some questions and some back and forth?
Yeah, I think I really liked some of the ones that you mentioned, and really in particular, I liked where you started. So I'm glad that we get a chance to do this and go back and forth. So for me today, I really wanted to challenge us to look at what we can bring value-wise oriented around our day-to-day as business owners. And so one of the main questions that I think you need to ask yourself on a weekly, monthly basis is the juice worth the squeeze? And this is one of my favorite quotes by one of my business partners, because when you think about it, it just makes sense. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth what effort and energy you're putting into it to get out of it? And it doesn't always necessarily have to result in dollars and cents. It could really turn into something that is meaningful and impactful to you at a deeper level that kind of motivates you and drives you to continue. It could be something as little as, you doing something that you said you were going to do, but you just got to evaluate what you're doing in all the different facets, your marketing, your campaigns that you're running for your clients and for your team members and everything. You just want to really look at it and figure out, is it worth the squeeze and the effort and the energy, and know what your outcome is and what your goal ROI is, even if it's not dollars and cents. So one of the other things that leads into is that reasons don't matter, results do. So that's my number 2 for quotes and for things that are going on in my life that I'm keeping in the back of my mind that are helping me drive our business forward and get results for our clients. So reasons don't matter, results do. What that means in context is, if you set a deadline and you set goals and you have defined outcomes that you're going for, having reasons for why you didn't reach those, they don't matter. It's making sure that you get the results, and by whatever means necessary, you have to come up with new creative strategies to get those results. So challenging yourself, not just to give in when it starts to get tough, but to look at new and creative and outside of the box ways to get that final result. And, I wrote down the 5th one. The last one was my takeaway from Elon Musk when he was talking about, I think he said 10 years, but I wrote down 1 year here, but trying to achieve your 1 year goal in 3 months, or something of that standard, but looking at it from a different angle and figuring out what questions to ask in order to flip the whole situation upside down and look at it from a different angle and say, okay, how can we get from where we are right now with the resources that we have to get these results? Looking at that and saying, okay, now how do we do that faster? And challenging yourself to come up with the answers. I think if you really sit and get quiet and ask yourself these questions and allow yourself to brainstorm and think, you're going to start coming up with so many different ideas, most of which probably aren't going to be good, but there's a handful in there that may make you reevaluate how you go about doing all of the processes that it takes to be successful. And that really is what leads to what would be number 3, but is now number 4. And I wanted to say default to massive action. And you're going to learn from the mistakes that you make, and you're going to learn from what is going right and how to amplify that. And you'll actually have your hands in what you're doing. So it's really easy to sit back and get the dopamine from planning and over analyzing and figuring out what to do when. And it's really important to put your head down and get to work and look at taking massive action. And a quick story on that: when I was in Tampa for a weekend, I was actually going to a Lightning game. There was a man and a woman sitting at the bar. And so I start a conversation with him, and it's an older gentleman. And I've come to find out his profession is that he's a nerd herder. That's what he calls himself. So what that means is that he's an old Navy SEAL, and he's got a bunch of engineers that work with him. And I had to ask him, because in our line of work, it feels like everyone always wants to be at 90% complete before they launch anything. They're afraid to take a risk and make a mistake. And so I had to know what's going on with this guy who's putting technology in the hands of people that are in life and death situations, and these Marines and SEALs and whoever else the technology is applied for. So I said, what percentage do you guys get this tool in the hands of the Marines? And I'm not lying when he told me they put it in the hands of the Marines at 20% complete. So he literally is putting something that is at 20% of what they feel is what they were going after and what they were trying to achieve, and puts it in the hands of people who are going to use it for life and death. Now, he does tell them that this program is at 20%, use it as such. But what he says is what they learn in that process from the beginning, what they thought they were going to develop ends up being completely different from what they actually develop, because they're developing for the users, not for what the engineers think is going to be best. So default to massive action, trust your gut and make the changes and follow the flow and don't stop your momentum. And that just leads to the last one, which is stay curious and try something new, a new tool, engage in a new conversation with somebody, open the door for someone, meaning that you introduce them to someone in your network. Try all of these things that feel good and are part of being a human being, and you'd be amazed at what doors open up to you. So that's my Fast Five for this week.
That's great. I really like the idea of maybe not releasing things at 20%, but developing for the users and kind of keeping that in mind. I think that can be really applicable in a lot of different ways, especially when it comes to marketing and thinking about who you're actually marketing to versus, for a specific example, what I'm really thinking of is we've got a couple clients that deal with toys and games. And so it's really interesting because you have to think about what's more exciting for whoever's going to be playing with this toy or this game, which is usually a child. But then how do you market it and get it in front of whoever's going to be buying it for the child? So keeping in mind developing for the users, I think it puts a spin on there to remind yourself to still market to the child, even though they're not necessarily the one making the purchase. So even just in that specific example, finding different ways to make that apply, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch how far along the process that whisper down the lane effect kind of happens to the design and to the implementation of what you're after. Some of the things that I talk about with my client in IoT is all oriented around user experience and the application of this technology, and quick to prototype and quick to make changes and quick to the marketplace and all the stuff that we all enjoy because of Steve Jobs and how they went about their process of being obsessed with the user experience. So remembering who you're designing for or you're producing for or what your problem you're solving needs to be in the minds of everything that you do. So great Fast Five. Really excited on these topics. This stuff is what drives me, and I know fuels you. So I think you did bring up something I did want to ask a question just to pick your brain on. It's amazing to sit and think adults designing things for kids. I don't know if you get to sit to talk to anyone who's in that development process. I know that you're so into the data, and I don't know if anybody comes to you and says, hey, what's going on the metric side, and wants to engage in any ideas. So maybe open up a little bit about any of those topics that I left out there for you.
Yeah, I actually the other day, we're kind of spearheading changing some of the graphics, and not necessarily doing a rebrand or a full refresh, but just putting new life into the images that you can see on the Amazon listing. Everyone has kind of copied our client, and so everybody who made a knockoff product of theirs, all their main images look the same, everything looks kind of the same. And so we're digging really deep, and we're 30, 40 minutes into this conversation, and then I realized we have tons of kids that are sons and daughters of those that I work with who have used these products. And I'm like, has anyone even asked them what their favorite part about this toy is? And they kind of all looked at me like, no, we've never really asked them. And I'm sitting here saying, like, we might think the coolest part about this is X, Y, Z, but you can get, a 5-second conversation with the kid and their favorite part is like, I mean, who knows anything else, right? So getting their perspective on how to market it is really, really important. So I think that's definitely, something that comes up a lot is how to think outside the box, like I've mentioned earlier, but that's one of the things more recently that we've gotten into, which is kind of funny. So I wanted to challenge one of the guys that I work with to go up to his son and ask him, his favorite 3 things about the toy in particular, just to see how drastically different it is from all of the 5 things we think are the most important about the product, right? So we'll see how it goes, but I also just want to see how excited for this toy these kids get, because they're all over the place.
It's, that 5-year-old may have the best feedback of anybody in the boardroom.
Yeah. No, especially in this sector, a really cool kind of on the down low opportunity that we've been faced with, because the client is of substantial sales volume on Amazon. We've been chosen to be part of a beta program on Amazon where it's a special kind of advertisement through DSP. I don't know that we'll do the DSP version, but basically our advertisement in the form of videos will be able to be run before any of the content like movies, TV, whatever is streaming through Amazon's platforms and beyond. I mean, it even goes as far as some news stations and things like that. But you'll be able to play the video before anyone is watching whatever the content is. And we can specifically target to, any of those markets where we think moms will be, or toys and games, and where kids will be. A little controversial, kind of exciting though. But the coolest part about it, which I'm really interested and kind of nervous to see, is that they're going to allow us to be a part of the additional beta program where while you're watching it, you can out loud say, Alexa, add to cart. And so I'm excited, but kind of nervous to see if a bunch of kids are watching cartoons and then they see our product come up and they're like, Alexa, add to cart, or Alexa, buy product. So kids might be able to accidentally do some shopping on here. So when we're talking about marketing to kids, I mean, this directly almost seems like we're marketing to kids. So we have to be a little careful, but definitely going to be interesting to see how that goes. And some of the controversy that comes up will be exciting, but they definitely
I think that selling kids toys is probably the least of the deadly sins that major companies are doing when they're selling kids sugars and everything.
It's not sugar. It's a healthy, active toy. It's good.
Yeah.
So.
Hell, it gets you outside. So, no, really, really excited for that opportunity for you to check out and see what's coming down the pipe in technology and advertising and all of the amazing opportunities that your hard work and diligence to your craft has produced. We might as well spend some time here and actually maybe get a little tactical. And, I can feel you wanting to get more analytical and how you're addressing some of these questions. So, I want to open the door to you to maybe some of the challenges that you're working on right now with the team, and what metrics you're trying to improve, and what maybe a strategy is that you're going about to improve that metric.
I think I touched on this a little bit already today, but one of the biggest challenges that we're facing for one client in particular is profitability. They're very established in the US market already, which is a great thing. There's lots of sales coming in, and that's great. But the profit margins are very slim in their category. I wouldn't say that they're slim compared to others. But when you're only making $1 a unit, to me, that feels very small. When they're doing the volumes that they are, again, like $1 is really great for some, but there's a lot of fees coming out on Amazon's part. Obviously, gas prices have increased, and so there's a lot with transportation and shipping and logistics that have increased. And all across the entire supply chain, everything kind of trickled upward in price just because of the effects of the gas in the current market and things like that. So profitability is huge for one of the clients that we're working on. And so even things such as box sizes on Amazon, there are different shipping tiers, and once you've reached past 18 inches on one of any of the dimensions of a box, you're automatically classified as oversized. And so the amount that you're charged per unit for FBA fees and things of that nature go a lot higher really quickly. So we're dealing with everything, but one of the things I want to get into is the manufacturing. I think because they've been doing what they've been doing for so long, they've got grandfathered into a lot of great programs, and they probably are as profitable on that side as they can be. But just how we are, we leave no stone unturned. And so I want to kind of get my fingers in there and see what we can do. But that also plays into marketing and advertising. So, while we're protecting our brand and being on brand defense, it's really expensive to be the number one bidder for this brand because they are so established. So, how do you make that more profitable? You really can't there. So you've got to squeeze in other ways to kind of increase the ROI on some of the advertisements, not just on Amazon, but everywhere that they're actually selling their products. So I think the holistic approach is best. We're definitely asking all the right questions and going in the right direction. But from a tactical standpoint, I kind of have to get in there and just shake it up. I don't have the answers to all the questions, but being newer to the involvement with the team, I'm not afraid to ask things that people haven't looked at in 10 years, just because it's all new to me with, working with them. It's only been about a year or so, which freaks people out a little bit, but I think in a good way. When you get in there and kind of shake it up, it's definitely important to be respectful, but to also know that that's kind of why they hired you, right? Is to get in there and see what you can do to improve things. So profitability is something big we're working on. Most of the other clients are in a favorable position there, but we're just working on growth, which is where it's really fun. For me, just being from marketing and advertising, finding new ways to expand into different markets is really exciting. You have to use a lot of creativity and a lot of, research and figuring out what competitors are out there and how to take some of their market share, which is, that's where that sports side comes in. We're a little competitive around here, but in a good way. So it's kind of
well, one of the main reasons why we do this podcast is so that way we can grab content from here and use it. And I think one of the points you talked on there, I'd love for you to explain some of the fees around selling on Amazon, particularly around those box sizing. I think that if you want to phrase the answer that kind of fits that context, I really would like to know maybe if there's one or three thresholds or something along those lines, and maybe talk about the fees that can be increased based on the size of boxes.
Yeah, so Amazon actually releases a pretty standard shipping, like a box size chart. I can pull it up just for a little bit more reference. Let me see how I want to do this. I can always do a link afterwards.
Why don't you just go ahead and just jump into what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so basically, there's a threshold for each dimension. There's small standard, there's medium, there's oversized. Once it gets into apparel, they have a totally different scheme going on, just as far as what they'll charge. But obviously, the bigger the box, the more that they charge for it. And that's just part of their FBA fulfillment fees. So FBA stands for Fulfillment by Amazon, which is a lot of what you hear people all over the internet saying, get rich quick with FBA because they handle everything for you. Well, that comes at a cost. I'm not saying it's not worth it by any means, because I think FBA is a great program, but Amazon truly handles everything from there on out. You ship to Amazon, they organize it in their warehouse. As soon as a customer places an order, they take the item, throw it in a box. That's kind of a tricky thing. Sometimes they don't, which becomes a problem. Sometimes they do, which becomes a problem if you don't want them to. So that's a whole other tangent there. But they pack and ship it. So they throw it in a box or a package. The little robots get everything where they need to go. There's huge conveyor belts all throughout the warehouse, and then it spits it out, gets it on a truck, and gets it to your customer for you all over the country. And if you are enrolled in some of the other programs, they can take what you've given to the U.S. warehouses and also give it to customers and fulfill the orders in Canada and in Mexico if you're eligible for those marketplaces. So,
one of the things that brought up there real quick before you zoom by, you got to actually go into do a virtual tour of the Amazon facility. Is there anything that stood out that was really exciting about how all of that works? I know you were really passionate about it when you got to do it.
I
want to talk about that.
It was one of those emails that came through where you want to just delete everything in your inbox. But I'm glad I got in there, because I was able to get our entire agency able to see a virtual tour of the Amazon fulfillment centers. And so they put little cameras on people and microphones, and they seriously took us through every single part. I'm sure there's, missing pieces in there somewhere, but through the majority of the sections of the warehouse. And what I couldn't believe was how there's not that many people in there. I mean, obviously they've got huge numbers of people that are working kind of in and out. Right. In a given area, there's a lot less human contact than you would think, because they've got these things called, I believe they're called Skivas or Shivas or something, but that's what they named their robots. But it has a little arm. It grabs the product down from the shelf. It brings it over. It's actually like a moving bookcase on almost like think of like a Roomba, those little electric vacuums that are in the shape of circles that, automatically vacuum for you. It's basically like a huge bookshelf on top of one of those, and those move without crashing into each other at like Mach 50 around the warehouse. And they bring the products from one place to another, where then the Amazon employee in the warehouse can pack and ship. So grab an item from there. But the actual robot with all of the products on there shows up right in front of one of the employees who's, doing the boxing. And a little light appears exactly on the cubby hole where the product is. And all the person has to do is say, okay, this is what sticker that goes on the box. It tells me what box to grab. It tells me what cubby hole to get into, and then pull it out and they just put it right in there. So everything is so automated. It's so much more high tech than I really ever could have imagined, honestly, which makes sense since they're doing, the numbers they are and staying organized. So it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, it'd be great to have a assistant here who was scouring the web to pull that up and show the video. I think maybe I should have been doing that, but I think the technology and how they're applying it in those warehouses is what makes them the machine that they are. Yeah, and then looking at, we didn't really get into too many tactical questions that we have. So I don't know if you got anything for me, and we only have about a minute left, and we got 39 seconds. So.
I don't know how you'd answer this in 39 seconds. Right. The one question I wanted to ask you that every business owner should know is what's our differentiation strategy, in your opinion? What makes us unique at Hometown Social?
As a boutique marketing firm, we actually buy into who they are as a business and get to know them. I know that's cliche and what is said, but for example, I literally went to trade shows that have to do with my client. So I think that's our differentiator, is that we try to find those that we believe in and buy into and feel passionate about, to where we act completely above and beyond what you should do as a business, right? And buy all in as if it's family and a team. So I think you checking your ads all weekend and jumping in at 11:30, 12 o'clock because you got up from a movie and you're like, oh, let's check and see what the data's doing. Or instead of watching your junk TV, you sat down and watched, a movie that was sponsored by one of the products, right? So it's like, it's something that we do and are, and that's what makes us different. So
I agree.
Did my best. That was about 60 seconds. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. Looking forward to connecting with you guys on social media, on our YouTube channel. And if you guys have any questions around internet marketing and e-commerce, this is the place to be. So see you guys
Thanks so
next
much,
week.
guys. Have a nice week.
Bye, Katie. See you in
Bye.
5 seconds.